All right, here is what we did with respect to ChatGPT. So we wanted to test out the features to see how this can be useful if you are a consultant working in automotive spice or functional safety or be it any standard, right? How this is going to help you out to get the data, whatever you're looking at. I mean, let me make a statement here. The data is not accurate. The data may not be correct, but it's definitely a great starting point to look into it and then see how to optimize the data and make it better. Now, let me show an example here. Here is a screen that I have here, and this is the Chat GPT or the website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type a quick question here saying that can you get me a template for embedded software architecture design? Yeah, so it looks like I may have to correct it. Uh, Here we go. And if you click on enter, this is kind of pulling in a template for the software architecture design. It says like there's no one such template for the architecture design, but it's going to give you a generic one which can be helpful for you to understand on how the architecture design works. Here we go. So it says that these are the sections that you have to consider when you develop the software architecture design. You have to first identify the functional, non-functional requirements. Makes sense? Perfect. You have to decide on the hardware platform or the platform in which the software is going to run, which also impacts the operating system, the programming language, and also the tools that's being used. You need to choose an OS. This is more of a bootloader, the operating system that we may need to use in for the software. I mean, here is an example that they are talking about the real-time operating system and decide on the programming language. That's perfectly fine. And then once you do all the basic stuff required for building the software architecture design, you have to identify the key components and relationships between the components. You have to consider the real-time constraints, and then you have to test and validate the architecture design. So before implementing the software architecture design, you may have to test the architecture design, make sure that the interfaces are complete, consistent, and do we have all the data required for us to integrate the software architecture when we go to the right side of the V. So I think this is a good starting point in my personal experience. It may not be perfect. And one good thing about this tool is each and every time when you type in the same question, you may get different results. I'm just trying this out again, and I'm sure it's going to give you a complete different result. But yeah, the results may be different, but the sections is going to be a mix and match of what has been already spoken about here. It says like identify the functional, non-functional requirements and decide on the hardware platform. So I think it's giving us the same results, but when I refresh the page and then try this out, it will give me a complete different results. And when I press enter, let's see what happens here. System is still thinking, chat gpt is still thinking what can we given, but it says like here is a general template that we can use. Identify the system requirements, performance, memory, power, communication requirements, identify the system's hardware component and the interfaces. So the starting point for the software architecture design is, of course, you have to study the system architecture design, and then you identify the software components including your RTOS, which is your operating system, and then you have to define the interfaces between the hardware and software components, including how the data will be exchanged and how the hardware will be controlled. And one important key factor is we need to define the relationships and dependencies between the software components. And then you have to define the overall structure hierarchy of the software components, and then you have to test it and make sure that all the interfaces are clearly defined. So these are some of the factors that you can consider. As I did mention, this is a good starting point. This is not the complete information what we wanted from the software architecture design perspective, but I would say this is a great starting point for a template, and this will give you an idea on how to proceed or how to define a how to define a what content you need to consider for the software architecture design. I hope this video was helpful. I would request you to play around with this and see what you think, and drop down your comments below and let's discuss. Thank you.